Hey everyone, and thanks for jumping back into the cryptoverse. Today, we're going to talk about Bitcoin. Hold the line. If you guys like the content, make sure you subscribe to the channel, give the video a thumbs up, and also check out the Telegram channel, which you can find a link to in the description below. Let's go ahead and jump in. So, Bitcoin is coming in hot on the weekly close, and the interesting thing will be on whether Bitcoin can in fact hold the line. Now, the line, when we talk about it, again, it's just the bull market support band, which, as always, is a combination of the 20-week SMA and the 21-week EMA. And right now, the 20-week SMA is at 40.7K, the 21-week EMA is at 43.4K. So that would more or less be the range that we would in fact like to hold the line above. Okay. Now, if we close below, say, the 21-week EMA, which is a possibility considering we're about $1,300 below it now, if we close below it, as long as we're above the 20-week SMA, then I still think it's relatively okay, and we can in fact say that we held the line. You know, if you go back to 2013, go all the way back, there was actually a time when we closed below it and then got back right above it the next week. And that was when we closed below both of them. So we're not going to leave a stone unturned and say these things can't happen. We know that they can, but ideally speaking, we would hold the line above at least the 20-week SMA. And bonus points if we can hold it above the 21-week EMA as well. Now, one thing we should note is the 20-week SMA is in fact decreasing, okay? The reason why this is important is because the level at which we need to hold the line will actually decrease once we do get to the weekly close and we get updated numbers. Because again, if you go back 20 weeks, right, if you go back 20 weeks, you're looking at around, you know, the valuation of Bitcoin was around $58,000 or so. And right now we're around $42,000. Okay. So if we do some quick math, right, that's about a $16,000 difference. You know, 1/10 of that would be $1,600, so 1/20th of that would be $800. Of course, I mean, it's going to depend on exactly where things close, but we would expect the 20-week SMA to probably be around 40K at the next weekly open. Okay, so once we get the weekly open in about a day or so, well, I guess it depends on when you're watching the video, but once we get the weekly close, the 20-week SMA is probably going to be around 40K. Plus or minus $100 or $200, right? Plus or minus $100 or $200. Of course, that will depend on what Bitcoin does between now and then. I mean, if Bitcoin drops a lot or goes up a lot between now and then that can change that estimate. But it should be somewhere around $40,000. And so that will ultimately be the area that we would in fact like to hold the line. Now, we've also, you know, we've talked about that pattern that has been playing out so far. And we'll continue to follow it and you know, keep in mind that level, the 37 to say 38K level is still theoretically in the cards, just simply if this plays out, right? Just simply if this plays out. We got the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the same thing over here, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And the reason we mention this is not to say that these things have to happen. It's just that it played out almost identically to what happened last time, right? So if it were to complete that pattern, and I mean, even in this pattern here, you can see it dropped and then it hesitated for a few days before continuing. So if it does do the same thing and we ultimately end up coming down to say 38K, 37K, we would have even had wicks below it over here that could take us 35 to 36K. You know, if that happens, then as long as we get back above the bull market support band by the end of the week, then we still are theoretically fine, right? Then otherwise it's just a wick, and we don't really care about wicks. And a lot of these were just wicks, right? A lot of these moves all the way back down here were just wicks until the very end where we actually had some daily closes below. But with that said, you know, holding the 20-week moving average on the first attempt is, you know, it would be the ideal scenario, right? It'd be the ideal scenario. It's never actually happened before. Like, you know, I mean, if we go back and look if we're just being, if we're not leaving one stone unturned here, let me just show you what I mean. So let's overlay the bull market support band. We'll go over to the weekly time frame. And what I mean is that anytime we've come above the bull market support band like this, the first attempt tends to not hold, right? So this was after the market cycle peak, or at least a local, this was a market cycle peak, but it does not hold, right? It did not hold. And then we actually did not hold it the second time either. This was the pandemic dump, so maybe you could just call it a black swan event and say, well, maybe we would have held it otherwise if you just sort of cover the screen and ignore what happened down here and say maybe the price just, stayed up here and we'll just ignore what happened down there. But it's never actually held it on the first attempt. I would like it for it to hold it on the first attempt. You go back over here and we were unable to hold it on the first attempt, but we held it on the second attempt, okay? So now that is to mention, we should say, I don't think that 64K is the market cycle top, right? I don't think it's the market cycle top, but I also don't think that the market cycle top has to be in 2021 either. So, I would argue that there's a lot of wiggle room here. Now, what would cause 64K to be the market cycle top in my eyes? If we go back down to say 15K, or some bears are calling for less than 10K. If we go back down to those levels and then just hang out there, and we just go in some long accumulation phase, and yeah, in hindsight, 64K was definitely the top. If on the other hand, we could, I feel like we could even have another lull in the market, but as long as we're not going all the way back down to say levels way down here, then this is still all part of the same market cycle, right? We're still several years away from the next halving. We have plenty of time. As far as I'm concerned, we have nothing but time. Okay, we have nothing but time as far as I can tell. So we'll see if we hold it. Remember back in May, I said 3 to 6 month lull. We've had 3 months so far. If we don't hold it, again, I would argue that it presents an opportunity. I know a lot of people might not see it that way, but that is what I would argue, is that a drop below would actually present an opportunity if that were to occur. But if we hold it, right, then ideally we're going to want to hold it for, several more weeks so that the 20 week starts to turn up here, okay? Because remember, once we get to the phase where the 20 week is only using this area over here, then we'll actually start to see the 20 week level off a little bit, right? It's not going to keep going down forever. Especially if we stay above it, right? Especially if we stay above it. If we go below it, then yeah, it's going to keep going down, right? It's going to keep going down. But as long as we stay above it, continue to print weekly candles above it, then it should level out. It should start to level out. I would anticipate it, it's going to go to, the 20 week should go to at least 40K or around 40K by the end of the next weekly close, which is coming up here really, really soon. The following week after that, we could still see it. It's going to depend on what Bitcoin does that week, but it'll be this candle here. So we still might see it decrease slightly. But if Bitcoin rallies back to 50K or something, then it could be a different story, right? It'll be a different story. And at that point, we would like to see the 20 week roll back up, or at least start to go sideways, and then roll back up to the upside. And then maybe we can hold it as support as it's going up. This is what we did over here. Right, but it was already increasing, right? It was never decreasing over here. So it's sort of we're sort of in a different scenario right now, because we're actually, as we get a new weekly close, the level that we have to hold is actually going down, whereas over here the level that we needed to hold was actually going up. So it was a little bit different. But anyways, that would be the area to hold. That is the line in the sand, the 20 week SMA, the 21 week EMA, the bull market support band. If you guys like the content, make sure you check out the premium list at intothecryptoverse.com if you want to know how I'm navigating these markets. Remember to subscribe, click the bell icon to turn on your notifications, give the video a thumbs up, and I will see you next time. Bye.